It has been said that average people want you to stay average. Welcome to the Breaking Average podcast, the podcast designed to challenge you to break the mold that average has on the world. Each episode offers insights directly from those who choose to break average every day. Now, for the latest insights, here are your hosts, Paul Gustafson and Mike Harber.
Hey, welcome to the Breaking Average podcast. Today is episode 37. My name is Mike Harber. If you didn't already know that, I'm joined by my co-host and friend, Paul Gustafson. Hey, Paul, how are you, my friend?
Mike, great to be here with you today. I can't wait to wrap this up. This is such an exciting season that we've had, and it's a lot of fun to be with you and Rick and having some other guests that we've had all year long, Diane and Trudy and so many others. So, this is kind of our finale.
Yeah, we talk about wrapping it up. We're coming to the conclusion of season 2. We've done a movie contest, best of movies, and we've over the last 21 or 22 episodes, we've been talking about this great book called Breaking Average: 7 Critical Factors to Team Strong Leadership. And so we're going to wrap it up a little bit today, Paul, and land the plane as we talk about winning in life, winning in leadership, winning in teamwork.
Yep. So today, guys, we are focused on this idea of victory. And we want you to think of it in a way that perhaps you've never thought of before. So if you hadn't noticed, and we've certainly called this out a few times, but each of the factors that we've talked to have really kind of spelled out this idea of victory. And we'll unpack that here in just a few minutes. But it's just a different look. And I think it's a healthier, fresher look in terms of what victory really is. So helping us in this discussion today, we've got Rick Morris. Hey, Rick.
Hey, team. And just to be clear, this is the season finale. So we all want to take some time to really start thinking about what next season looks like, some of the new surprises and new wrinkles that we'll add to it, and also take a little time to recharge the batteries.
Yeah, season finale. What we hope is we've done a good enough job that people are excited for the next season to begin. There's a little bit of, oh man, I can't believe it's the end. Like I have a couple of shows I like to watch. I'm not a huge TV guy, but there's a couple of shows I like to watch. And when I find out it's the last episode of the season, I'm like, oh man, what am I going to do now? Right. Well, we hope there's a little bit of that with our listeners and viewers on the Empowered Living Show today. We will be back as we plan to serve and add value to you in the future as well. Paul, you've got a great story that you want to share to kind of get us leaning into this final episode of season 2. Why don't you share that with us a little bit?
Yeah, we've shared a few stories, over the last 21 weeks, and we had a great interview with Coach Mosley the last 2 weeks, so hopefully you enjoyed that. We started off with the 36 U.S. rowing team. That's a pretty cool story. We had the 80 U.S. Olympic hockey team that we've talked about, the miracle on ice. Everybody loves that. Harriet Tubman, the Titans. That was our movie that we picked. That was our number 1 movie of the land, is Remember the Titans. And Apollo 13 is a story which also was a movie that we've talked about in terms of that. Each of those, there's something significant that takes place. There's perseverance through that. There's all those elements of victory that we're going to unpack in a minute. But I wanted to share, kind of recap a story here. I was flying just the other day, and Rick, you were flying too, right? So we're both in flight. I think we were texting each other just before our flights. And it occurred to me like, wow, what an amazing innovation flight is, right? Think about the impact that has caused, the ability for us to be able to get from point A to point B faster than we could ever imagine. And it's fantastic. It's fantastic because we get to see loved ones that we care about. We get to go to events and be able to create experiences that we couldn't otherwise. We get to be able to have things maybe shipped to us in different ways. And I started thinking about what if Orville and Wilbur were right here, right now? What would they think? What would they say? And as I thought about, imagine them being there and having a conversation with them, I couldn't help but think, well, Catherine Wright needs to be here too. Because if there wasn't a Catherine Wright, there wouldn't have been an Orville and Wilbur that we would have known about and talked about today. In fact, I may have not have been on that flight at all, nor Rick from his flight from Puerto Rico, because Catherine Wright was the game changer, right? Could you not, right? We know that Orville and Wilbur did something fantastic, but she was like the Coach Mosley for Orville and Wilbur, 3 years younger, and she wouldn't let them give up. She believed in them. We talked about belief last week. She believed in them, and I don't know if you know this, guys, or not, but she was awarded the Legion of Honor in France. One of the few women who ever received that award. They recognized her impact. She was a communicator of aviation for years before her passing in 1929. But she was one of the key people who fought for the right for women to vote too. So we have a lot to thank for her, and it really ties this idea of victory. Reaching that vision and that goal, and then being able to take it so much further and beyond what we originally had. And we're going to unpack that again. I love Napoleon Hill's quote, "Victory is always possible for the person who refuses to stop fighting, who just doesn't give up." So that's the story I wanted to share. Catherine Wright, the one person perhaps a lot of people don't know, but she is the other Wright brother. She is the game changer. She is the Coach Mosley of aviation.
Yeah, I love that story, Paul. We all need someone in our corner. You reminded me of that last quote that you shared about, victory is always possible for the person who refuses to stop fighting. You reminded me of a quote from Les Brown. He says, "It's not over till you win." Right. And so we're all going to have like challenges in life, failures. I'm sure the Wright brothers crashed a lot more planes than they actually flew. Right. But they continue to pursue. They had that coach in their corner. They continue to be to push, and it was Catherine Wright who helped do that as well. Rick, why don't you dive in here and share some thoughts as well?
Absolutely. Like, again, 21 episodes. And for those that haven't picked up on it, victory is the acrostic that has been the framework of the last 21 episodes. There's been 7 core factors, and the 7 factors we talk about: team strong, leadership. And then we had 3 elements inside of each one of those factors. So if you're just picking up the podcast right now, it's fine. You can listen to this episode, but you want to go back and hear those other episodes as well, when we started to talk about casting vision, that first interest in that first section in the V in the acrostic. When you cast that vision, it allows for insight. And then you can work to collaborate and trust, take ownership, choose to be resilient, and then look for the yes opportunities. And if you can do those, that's the victory we're talking about today.
Yeah, so good. And of course, ownership is the number one factor, right, Paul?
Yeah.
But I
see, there's me winning, right? There's
right
me,
there.
My victory right there. I had to get that in. Go ahead, Rick.
But I did want to come back to this. And I was given an award at a company thing like early 90s. And I've carried it around with me. I'll kind of show it on the screen here. It's all faded, right? A sun fade and all that stuff. It's just been on my desk for so long. But it's a quote from Vince Lombardi. It says, "I firmly believe that any man's finest hour, the greatest fulfillment of all that he holds dear, is that moment when he has worked his heart out in a good cause and lies exhausted on the field of battle, victorious." Love that quote.
Wow, that's great.
Giving it all up, right? Go ahead.
I don't think, until you shared it with me before we turned on the record, Rick, I don't think I'd ever actually heard that quote before. So
yeah, it's a fantastic one. But the visualization of that is the hard work that paid off, right? I mean, you're just exhausted, but you won the day, you won the idea, you won the challenge, right? It's not necessarily winning on a scoreboard, which is that, what Lombardi represents, but whatever that is just exhausting yourself and getting over that final push and getting across the finish line and feeling that win.
Yeah, one of the things, for our listeners, and I know all 3 of us have experienced this. Sometimes we've laid on the field exhausted from losing, right, Rick?
Absolutely.
Right, Paul? But it's the getting back up, that never quitting, that never stop fighting that Napoleon Hill said. And sometimes that requires one of us to be the push, like Catherine Wright was for her brothers, right? It needs somebody to kind of push us. That's what we hope that we've done for you, the listener of the Breaking Average podcast on the Empowered Living Show as well. We hope that we've kind of given you some insight and given you a little push and a little hope to push you on forward to that victory as well. And we want to continue. We're going to continue in season 3 soon. But we want to make sure that we bring other great leaders, victorious leaders out there, and we would love to learn who those are from you. We want to ask you to visit our website, breakingaveragepodcast.com/leader. We've got a form there. Just give us their name, contact information. We'll do the rest.
Yeah,
Paul, we got a sponsor as well today.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool that our sponsor, one of our contributing authors to Breaking Average is Jay Johnson. And he's been an advocate for honor flights. You guys ever seen an honor flight? I've been in an airport where, these guys, these vets are coming in and they're visiting Washington, D.C. They're traveling to D.C. You ever seen one of those?
I have not.
It's amazing. Again, I'm just right down the road. Like I say down the road, like it's an easy drive. It's not. I'm south of Washington, D.C., depending on the time of day. It could be an hour to get to the airport. It could take 3 hours. But nonetheless, sometimes, and right now they're kind of on a pause because of COVID, they have these honor flights. They've got folks coming in from different locations. San Antonio is one of the primary spots where folks are coming in from San Antonio. They're veterans, World War II, Korean, Vietnam, wounded soldiers who are coming into D.C. to take in the sites, to visit the memorials, and they're given honor. And what's really cool, and it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it, because I've been multiple times. I've been in Reagan National Airport at my gate, and then all of a sudden everything gets quiet, and then you hear something, you hear an announcement made, and then everybody kind of shuffles over, and then like the Red Sea parts, and it's like a parade in the airport, and these guys are being wheeled down. Most of them, a couple of them are walking, and they're being pushed by somebody who's sponsoring them or helping, or they're escorting them either back home, or just arriving from out of the airplane. I've seen it in both cases where they're either heading back home or they're coming to DC. And it's such an amazing experience. Everybody's cheering and just clapping them on and just honoring them. And you're crying. Tears are coming down. I mean, because you realize that these guys have sacrificed it all, and they probably have a brother or a sister who fought with them, who maybe was lost in a war or in a battle, or maybe at some point in time they passed on, but they served our country and they love our country. And that's kind of why I'm wearing this shirt, USA. So that's our sponsor. I know I've kind of been long-winded on this, but our sponsor is honorflightsanantonio.org. And thank you, Jay, for being a big supporter of that. And we want to encourage you guys to go visit honorflightsanantonio.org and just contribute just a little bit and help out, such an amazing, let's make an impact. And glad we talked about the Wright brothers, Catherine Wright, flights, honor flights. That's our sponsor.
Yeah, Paul, as you talk about honor and honoring those vets, we record this episode on D-Day. And D-Day is remembered as the day that the beaches of Normandy were stormed, and victory was not assured, but it was hoped for, right? In that, and certainly we want to make sure we give shout out and honor those family members who lost someone during that time as well. In the Resource Breaking Average book, we learn what victory really means, Paul, and why it's important and why does it matter. Rick, let's dive into that subject a little bit. Why does victory really matter? Why is it really important?
And victory's the juice that you want to keep on drinking in the rest of your life, is that winning, that feeling. And victory's anything. Like it's easy to go to sports. I love watching sports because of that victory piece. And a lot of times, 99% of the time, I'm rooting for the underdog. I'm rooting for the person who's not supposed to win or doesn't have a chance to win. That's why, we brought up the 80s, USA Olympic hockey. Do you believe in miracles? Yes. It's one of the greatest calls of sports of all time, because there was no way they were supposed to win, but they had this belief in each other. And what it means to me is it's the breakthrough moment. There's victories everywhere. People have asked me, what do I love about project management? Or project management for me is a series of breakthrough moments. There, in every single project ever, there's a point where you think you're going to fail, that it's not going to work, that it's not going to happen. And a lot of them do fail. A lot of them do. I mean, a large variety, 60% of projects fail, depending on what metrics you're tracking. But the ones that succeed means that they broke through, and that breakthrough moment is the victory. Whether it's thinking about something in a different way, whether it's involving another person that has a better idea, it's the moment where the stars align and everything works. And there's no greater feeling. And so, Lombardi quote about lying on the field of battle victorious. That field of battle can be anything. It could be your struggle over weight. It can be your struggle over getting your kids to do homework better, right? All of these things. But there's that breakthrough moment where an idea comes in, you try it, you succeed, and there's this feeling, and you can't describe it, and you become in search of that feeling for the rest of your life, and a continual search of that feeling for your rest of life. So to me, it's relief and celebration in one instant. Like, that's the only way I can describe it, is that there's relief that you're finally past it, celebration that you came out on top, but it happens simultaneously. And there's just no other feeling on earth like it.
Yeah, that's so good. Y'all remember growing up, I know Paul will, Rick, you're a little bit younger than us, I think. I can't remember. Oh gosh, what was it called, Paul? The Agony of Defeat, where they show the skier come down.
Oh yeah, Wild World of Sports.
Wild World of Sports. Thank you. I could not come up with that, but yeah, the agony of defeat, right? That's why victory matters. That's why winning matters, because losing sucks. There's that agony of defeat, right? I mean, and so as a leader and as an individual, finding that hope, getting yourself back up, moving forward. No one wants to be on a losing team. I mean, Rick and I give each other a hard time about SEC sports. I think Rick, in our last episode, you said no one really remembers the shots that you miss when you were talking about Michael Jordan, but there's a time in Arkansas, Tennessee history. I remember where
I remember it too.
The fumble, right?
Oh yeah, Clint Sterner.
Tennessee goes on to win the national title, and Arkansas goes. We were both undefeated at that time, and it was a losing season. Like, that's still a painful moment in history. When it's personal, losing hurts, but man, it's so much better to win, right? And you used a Vince Lombardi quote earlier, Rick. I'm going to use another one. He said, winning isn't everything, but it is the only thing. And that, I think that's so true sometimes in life. It's, we all want to win. We all want to do better. And Haley Deegan, and I'll give you a new name, Rick, that you can pull on, but she said winning is kind of the cure to all things. To get followers, fans, success, you just got to win. And as a leader, to get followers, you got to point people toward victory. You got to have some small wins yourself and pull people forward as well. Paul, what are your thoughts on this idea? You wrote the book on victory, man. You wrote this chapter. So.
Hey, it's just, they're observations, right? So I may be the author, and I certainly have a lot of great contributing authors, but it's really a reflection of what other people have done in their life, and pulling that together, seeing the secret to success and how we get there. By the way, is Haley Deegan related to Tina Yothers?
I was going there. Paul.
Just wondering. But I love it. I love the Lombardi quotes. I want to share this real quick. And this is really an invitation to everybody to go to breakingaverage.com. But we got this great resource. I got to just tell you, that Lombardi quote that I hadn't heard of until you shared it before the record, and then, of course, on our call, that really touched me in the way you shared it. Have you guys heard, have you seen the Citizen, I think it's called Citizen Republic, a Man in the Arena speech, right, by Roosevelt? You guys are familiar with that, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm not.
And so Brene Brown does a great job kind of highlighting this. And we've got a resource on the breakingaverage.com site called Choose the Arena. And it's from Theodore Roosevelt's speech in 1910. He says this: "It's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles and where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives violently, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause. And I love that word, worthy cause. Who at the best knows in the end the triumph of the high achievement, who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. His place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Theodore Roosevelt, 1910. We've got a cool poster for you guys. You can grab it. You can use it. It's an inspirational piece for me. It's got a cool picture because it's got the Colosseum. You remember Gladiator? You know, there's got a shot of Rome with that, you know, so it's got a really cool image on it. Invite you to go check that out. But this whole idea, guys, of victory is so important. And I love the Lombardi stuff. I love what you just shared, Mike. And how refreshing is to know, going back to the Napoleon Hill quote, how refreshing is it to know that victory is always possible for the person and team who refuses to stop fighting. We talked about, you know, the Netflix show, Last Chance U. We've talked about Remember the Titans, Harriet Tubman, all those great stories, the Wright brothers. How refreshing is it to know that victory is possible for those who refuse to stop fighting? Victory is always possible. And it starts with this desire of breaking average. You know, if Edison had gave up, you know, if the Wright brothers had given up, keep going. We're going to fall. We're going to fail. We're going to fall in the arena, and there are going to be critics. But do they really count? You know, keep going. You know, and there is no finish line, guys. There is no finish line. I love how Simon Sinek talks about the infinite game. I really think it's infinite thinking. It's that infinite game kind of thinking. Because when we think there's a finish line, then we kind of relax. We kind of stop, like destination to disease. You guys have heard John Maxwell talk about destination disease, right?
For sure.
You know, you have that success and you kind of rest, and I call it business rubbernecking. You know, you kind of like, oh, wow, look what we've done. And you rest on your laurels and you don't get there. No, keep going. There's more to play. There's an infinite game. So I just want to encourage folks, you know, just keep going, keep disrupting. Innovation is always about disruption, not comfort. Keep disrupting. It's better to fail and get back up than to succeed and sit down.
Great stuff, Paul. Love the resource that you shared as well, and the speech from Teddy Roosevelt. You reminded me as you were talking about, you know, the rubbernecking and looking at our past success. I mean, I think we probably all know people that were most likely to succeed, you know, and that was the pinnacle of their success. You know, the high school, right? They're still living on those high school dreams or their college dreams or college memories, and they haven't continued in an infinite game to continue to pursue something bigger, something better, a new victory as well. And so you just reminded me of that, to continue to grow. It's a daily journey and a new opportunity to win each and every day. Rick, you said something maybe in the last episode, and there's a guy I'm going to talk about a little bit, Tim Grover, who was coach and advisor to some of the greatest athletes ever. But he taught, you know, he was Kobe Bryant's coach, Michael Jordan's coach, D Wade's coach. But he talked about, you know, it was about winning the moment, winning the day, winning the week. You know, that's what victory is, right? It's, some people say, yeah, I want to win that championship, but they don't do those little things to win the moment, to win the day, to win the week, to win the month. And therefore they never experience victory. They only experience that agony of defeat. And so, you know, that's what we hope to inspire our listeners to do, is to just kind of grow a little bit each day, right? Each week with the Breaking Average podcast, to help you to think a little bit differently as well. So Rick, let's dive into this next portion. How can we transfer this idea of victory into the minds, hearts of others?
Yeah, and I'm actually going to steal something. So there's always a pre-show, gang, when we do this. There's a chance where the three of us kind of warm up, get some fellowship, have some fun, have some laughs. And I'm actually going to pull from what I just teased you about. So Mike was coming on. We were trying to get his microphone, working, and I was kind of making fun of that. But I said something I think it really kind of fits. And I was talking about Tennessee baseball. Arkansas is number one. They're great. Tennessee's underdog. And I said, you know what? No matter what, Tennessee's good. Like if they're in this underdog moment, if they lose, they were kind of supposed to lose. But if they win, they overcome. And I want to pull on that to say we really need to continue to put ourselves in underdog moments, to strive for things that we're not supposed to attain. And if we don't attain those, it's okay. We weren't supposed to. But if we do, the victory side of that is enormous, right? Is enormous. And it comes back also to something that we've been taught. And I really had a big reflective moment on this past weekend. Paul, you mentioned I was coming back from Puerto Rico, and I've taken a large leap. I've owned my own business for the last, 16, 17 years. And I've taken a large leap to go work for somebody else. And the reason why I did that though, is it's something that John had challenged us is if you're the smartest one in the group, if you're the smartest one in the area, in 5 or 6 people that you're hanging out with, you need to go get a different group. You need to put yourself back into that underdog situation. And I was reflecting it for the last 16 years. I've been a hired consultant. I get hired when there's problems, which means normally I'm the person that's bringing the solution. I'm not calling myself smart, but in that situation, I'm the smartest person in the room because I've solved it before. And I was sitting there in this room filled with incredible people. And it was the first time that I wasn't the youngest at the table in my entire career. And also one where I felt like I was a little outside of my depth, that I am going to have to stretch myself and push myself in order just to get to the level of these other people that I'm surrounded with. And that's an awesome feeling. But my point to all of that is if you're the smartest one in the group, you need to get a different group. You need to continually challenge yourself to grow and put yourself in underdog moments. So when the victories occur, you've grown. You've stretched, not do it something you've done 1,000 times. That's not victory anymore. That's habit. That's repetitive habit. Victory comes from stretching yourself in a new direction and succeeding.
Yeah, that's so good, Rick. I was just thinking about tying back to something Paul said earlier. Victory's not something you do one time. And, I was thinking about your weight loss journey, Rick. It's, you've achieved some success, but you haven't had victory yet, right? Victory Correct. Is the lifestyle. Victory is the lifestyle that not only do you lose the weight, but that you sustain it, right? That you maintain it over the long haul. So it's about continuing to do the things on a daily basis. And so I'll use that as an example to go back to something you just said, Rick, is learning. You're in a deep pool right now, but because you've created this lifestyle of being a continuous learner, you're going to experience victory. You may be behind right now at the starting line, right? But you're going to catch up because you've created this lifestyle of continuous learning, and you'll catch up eventually to those that may feel like they're ahead of you right now. But because you're a continuous learner, you'll catch up with them. Paul, what are your thoughts on this idea of moving or creating this transfer of victory to others?
Yeah, I like what Rick just shared. It reminds me of a quote. I remember seeing this quote a while ago, and it's so powerful. It's dreams come in a size too big so that we may grow into them. And this whole underdog concept that Rick was talking about, I get it. The Titans, the U.S. hockey team. So many of the stories that we've talked about. There's an underdog, and we're always the underdog, guys. Even Arkansas early on was an underdog, and they worked hard to be in the position that they're at, to be number one baseball team in the land right now at the time of our recording. We'll see who wins in the end, but it's fun. It's fun to get to that point, and you work hard to get there. But how do we get there, right? And measure what matters, right? We've heard that phrase before. It really matters a lot. It matters because I think we measure the wrong things sometimes, guys. I think as a society, corporate America at least, we measure last year's numbers. We measure against average. We're talking about breaking average. We can't measure against last year's average. We need to break average. We need to measure against where we're going, right? There was no average to measure for Edison when he created the light bulb, right? There are things that have yet to be created. To be disruptive, we have to measure against different things. And so I think it's really important. I would encourage folks to figure out what are your instruments of measurements? How are you going to break average? How are you going to be team strong? Think about what we've talked about over the last 21 weeks. We've given you guys some tools, and we're still learning ourselves, guys. Let's be honest. Mike, Rick, and I, and all our guests, we're still learning. We're here because we're on a growth path. We're not just goal-oriented, we're growth-oriented. But I love this idea of vision, so to model and measure our progress, maybe we can find ways to assess the clarity for vision. Maybe we can find ways to assess the comprehension for insight. Maybe we can find ways to assess the chemistry for collaboration. All right, just those three alone, that's going to change the game. We'll keep going. Maybe we can assess, look at our confidence of our team. Confidence isn't just an individual sport. It is a team sport. We need to have confidence with one another, and that's really trust. How do you measure that? Ownership. We got to assess our connections. We got to assess the fact that we've allowed other folks to own something, which gets to the invitation that we'll talk about in the yes factor. But assess the connections, assess the courage. Do you have courage? Do you get back up? Are you scarred? Are there critics in the arena? If there are critics in the arena, that means at least you're fighting in the good fight. Because if you don't have any critics, you're probably in the wrong room. So it's okay to have a few critics. Get back up. Assess your courage. And then what's your commitment? Assess the commitment. And again, individually, yes, we can measure this, but we can measure this as a team. So those are some of the thoughts that I have on what we can do to kind of transfer this. Mike, how about you?
Yeah, it's good stuff, Paul. I love that. And, one of the things I think about transferring victory to others, it begins with preparation. Joe Gibbs, one of your favorite coaches, Paul, the last time the Washington football team, known as the Redskins back when he coached, he said a winning effort begins with preparation, right? And so we have to prepare. And I think as a leader, to transfer this idea of victory to others, the leader has to prepare, right? It was John Wooden who said, you don't wait till the moment to get ready, you get ready. So when the moment arrives, you're fully prepared, right? And so as a leader, you got to prepare the message. You got to prepare that alignment. You've got to prepare that invitation. You've got to prepare that belief. And sometimes as a coach, you've got to encourage this idea of victory in others, because some people don't know how to win. I think that's one of the challenges we have in our culture right now is people don't know how to win, right? And there's so much negativity in the media and the news that are teaching people how to lose and how to be reliant on, maybe things outside of themselves, when really what we should be doing is building this belief within someone else. You got to believe in victory yourself, not believe that someone else is responsible for your victory. And those are just my thoughts on that. So we have to teach others how to win, how to have victory, that vision, that insight, the collaboration. Look, let's be honest. Not everybody knows how to collaborate, right? And so as a leader, as a coach, we have to teach people how to do that. We have to build trust. Not everybody understands ownership and resiliency, and not everybody knows how to say yes to the team versus yes to themselves. And those are all things that, as a leader, we have to teach to bring others along in that journey as well.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. This is such a fun conversation. I wish we could make this an extended version of the Breaking Average podcast for everybody, because we can really unpack all that. Love the Joe Gibbs quote. I think preparation is so important. We try to take time to prepare, for example, on these podcasts to make sure that we have, the key thoughts, identified. We don't go down to, the micro level and capture everything, because we like that free flow, but we try to take time to prepare for this. And we're always in that constant preparation mode. I think it's important. Also, I wanted to highlight, again, we've already reminded folks of our sponsor, and that sponsor, Honor Flights San Antonio. Thank you. Thank you, Jay, for supporting that. Thank you to all our vets out there. Thank you for getting back up. Thank you for fighting a good cause for us, our freedom. our liberty that we have, here, at least in the United States and really abroad. Thank you for that. And we just want to honor you. Go to honorflightsanantonio.org and support them. They're trying to get back started again, now that COVID is kind of waning a little bit. I mean, we're still trying to do things, but they want to honor them. They're looking for new creative ways to honor them. While we can't get flights going again right now, they're trying to find ways to really honor them and what they've done, the service that they've given our country, and appreciate that. And we invite you to go to breakingaverage.com. One of the things I should mention really quick, we have an assessment tool in the book, breakingaverage.com, that can help you. We talked about measuring what matters. There's some assessment tools in the book, so encourage you to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, for that. Breakingaverage.com. Make sure you go grab the resource that Paul shared from Teddy Roosevelt today to go along with this chapter. Let's continue to move forward in victory as well. Paul, let me ask Rick real quick. Closing thoughts. We're going to dive into our tip and challenge. We'll just kind of move Rick in front of you here, Paul. Any closing thoughts on this idea of victory or this season, Rick, that you want to share with our listeners?
Absolutely. It's been a fantastic season. I've really enjoyed being with the both of you. My closing thoughts, one of the things is that, victory, what is success and failure but a definition? It's a definition. And so there's a famous quote, I think Jeff Jarrett said, it says, don't hate the player, hate the game. But Steve Harvey took that quote and he says, don't hate the player, change the game. And I remember when I was speaking early on as a speaker, one of my first professional speeches, I had like 1,000 people in the room. And there was like 3 people that just hated everything about me. And I was so focused on that, not the fact that 900 were okay with it, or at least I didn't drive them to hatred so much that they had to tell me about it. But I was so focused on those 3. And I started to change my view of that, of, all right, well, if somebody doesn't like it, then I'm not taking a stand and I just wasted an hour. Right. And so now my victory is in finding out and in trying to find that person and trying to create a dialogue so that I can learn and open myself up, and what created that visceral reaction. So to me, it's victory now when somebody doesn't like what I had to say. Right. And so that's my kind of point of don't hate the player, change the game, is your success and failure and victory is all based on self-belief, which we talked about in the last episode, and a definition to yourself as to what equals success and failure. So look at not only kind of the inventory audit that we talked about, the belief audit in the last episode, but also what your definition of success and failure really means.
So good. Paul, how about your tip and challenge, my friend?
It's a great story, Rick. I mean, we've all faced those critics, right? You had 3 out of 1,000 people, 997 had no problem with it, but there were 3 critics. And those critics can deflate us. They can just take the air out of the bag and really keep us from moving forward and sailing. So what do we do with that, right? Well, we got to get back up. The man in the arena thing that we talked about earlier. So, and we've got to remember the why breaking average matters. And ask that question of yourself. Why does breaking average, what does it mean to me? What does it mean to us as a team? What does team strong leadership matter? Ask those questions. I believe it matters because we're meant to add value to others. Each of you guys, the reason why I invited you to be a part of this is you guys want to add value to other people. We think this matters. We think there are stories to be told. We don't think we're done yet. There's so much more for each of us, all our listeners. There's more to your life than where you're at today. And it's about breaking average. If we don't break average, we won't make the impact that we could and should. So let's break average. So my tip is never lead alone. Don't lead alone. Play the infinite game. Keep in mind the things that we've been talking about over the last 21 weeks. But my challenge also is to be the guide, that maybe be the one that can be like the Coach Mosleys that we talked about last week, but somebody who can encourage others and believe in other people. Think also to Catherine Wright. We talked about that earlier. She was the guide for her brothers Wilbur and Orville. And the guide doesn't need to know all the answers. You don't need to know all the answers. You just need to be there, be empathetic. They just need to be somebody who encourages them, who care. You care about them. You want to Help them find the answers. Help them through whatever challenges that they're going through. Be there to listen. That's what we want. That's what this world needs. We need guides to help other people. And I think if we do that, boy, we're going to be breaking average. And that's pretty powerful. That gets me excited. How about you, Mike? What's your tip and challenge?
Yeah, it's good. You know, as we wrap up season 2, I just want to challenge our listeners here. Number one, get a copy of Paul's book, Breaking Average: 7 Critical Factors for Team Strong Leadership, and study it. That's one way to break average in your own life, right? Is to read, study, learn new things, new ideas from others. And then, the other thing is, the tip is to learn from other winners. I mentioned earlier this guy named Tim Grover, and I'm listening to his book on Audible right now, but he wrote a book called Winning. He was and is a trainer, a coach for some of the greats. He was Michael Jordan's coach for 15 years. He's Kobe's coach. D. Wade, many professional athletes. Like, why do those guys need coaches, right? I mean, they had coaches, but why was Michael Jordan paying a guy like Tim Grover to coach him off of the basketball court? Because he was teaching him how to win, mindset, all of those things, being somebody that could, speak something different into their life. So it's an opportunity for you to learn from some of the greatest winners on the planet. Here's what I know from that book is it will challenge you because there's some things in my life. I think I'm winning. I think I'm doing pretty good, but there's some things in there I'm learning that, wow, I could do better. So my tip is learn by studying winners. Maybe grab a copy of Tim Grover's book and read that or listen to it on Audible. The challenge is measure yourself more. Paul talked about measurement. I think we have to measure ourselves more. What would winning look like? Most people want more, but they don't necessarily get more because they aren't measuring. Rick has been spending several months measuring himself against not only where he was, but where he wants to go as well. I think there's a both and. Paul mentioned measuring against the future us versus past. I think you have to measure against both, right? Measure what was our past, but are we also getting closer to where we want to go? And measure yourself on a regular basis. That's how you that's how you have victory. That's how you win more, because what doesn't get measured doesn't get moved, right? If we're not measuring something, there's no movement forward. So that's my tip and challenge for us today. And I just want to thank, Rick for everything. Rick has definitely helped us up level our game in season 2 of the Breaking Average podcast. I want to say thank you, Rick, for making us look better with all the editing and things that you do to help us break average on this podcast. Paul, thanks for bringing the book to the world and giving us an opportunity to discuss these topics around breaking average and helping people lead forward into the future.
Love doing it this with you guys. It's such a joy for me to just spend this time with you guys talking about some of these things. I come away with notes, ideas. It gets me energized and ready to roll, and I appreciate it. And it wouldn't happen without you. So thank you, Mike. Thank you, Rick. Thank you for all our guests that we've had. And I want to thank our sponsor, our in-kind sponsor today is Honor Flights San Antonio. And thank you, vets, for everything that you've done. We want to honor you today. And, this week as this podcast gets shared, we know the sacrifice that you've made. We know the passion that you have. We know that victory really is something that was in your mind too. When you served, victory for this country, the beliefs that we have, the values that we have. And we appreciate that. So visit breakingaverage.com for the resource that we talked about, but also the Honor Flights web link that we shared earlier too.
Yeah, that's good. And so as we wrap up season 2, thank you for being a listener on the Breaking Average podcast or a viewer on the Empowered Living channel. And make sure as we take a little off-season break, make sure you continue to stay in touch with us through breakingaverage.com, the website. Paul adds a lot of resources. He'll keep doing that over the off season. And as we launch season 3, we'll let you know when that begins. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Paul. This has been a lot of fun. We'll see you on the next episode, the next season of the Breaking Average podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Breaking Average podcast. If you loved what you heard, please take a moment to subscribe. All opinions and comments expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and do not reflect the opinions or views of any of the advertisers, producers, or platforms. This show was produced by R2 Multimedia. A special thank you to Milestone Melodies for our theme music. As you continue your day, what is one action that you can apply from this podcast to your life? Tune in for our next episode as we continue to challenge everyone to break average.